Let's turn now to an issue that's often mentioned but rarely discussed: the Palestinian refugees. They make up the largest refugee population in the world, at an estimated figure of 4 million at least, scattered around the world and living in camps in Arab countries. Many of them await a peace deal between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and many were disappointed when the relaunched Arab Peace Initiative failed to call for a full automatic right of return and instead simply asked for a just solution for the refugees. How can any future peace agreement satisfy both sides? Joining me to discuss how this issue will be dealt with at the negotiating table sooner or later is academic lecturer Karma Nabulsi. Welcome, Karma.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us. And think tank director Michael Bergman joining us from Washington, D.C. Hello there, Michael.
Hello, David. Thank you for having me.
Bless you. Well, let's start with that basic question there, Karma. How can there be a formula that is acceptable to both sides on the question of right to return of 4 million refugees?
Well, actually the number of refugees, first of all, is higher than that. You have 4 million that are registered with UNRWA, 3.9, but you also have displaced people and refugees from 67. So the number is slightly larger. But to go back to your question is, how do you get to the formula? The most important way to get to a formula of what's acceptable is to start a peace process about the refugees, which we have yet to have.
A peace process that proceeds how? Do you mean more than a long conference? Or?
Yes, I mean the thing is everybody's looking at numbers or what's an outcome or trying to force something on the refugees and seeing it as a sticking point, when really it should be the starting point. It's the core of the conflict, and most of the peace processes that we've had up till now, such as Oslo, etc., have avoided this issue and said it can't really be discussed or addressed substantially. The Arab League initiative actually talks about a just solution based on 194. And 194 is a General Assembly resolution that says those refugees who wish to do so should be allowed to return to their homes, which is the right of return.
Right. At that point there, Michael, a phrase like the one there that Karma was just saying, would that ever be acceptable to the Israeli point of view, to Israeli negotiators?
I think David, that's a very good question. I do think, first I want to make a little comment about UN resolution, General Assembly resolution 194, as Karma very accurately described it, talks about, or recommends the permission that the Palestinian refugees should be permitted to return to their homes. Now, it does not say the right of return. It does not describe it as a term of right, while the resolution itself in a different article of it does talk about rights. So there is a reason why I believe the right of return is not mentioned. And we had the Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and the Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni lately been talking about this issue. And Foreign Minister Livni said, and I believe that will be the opening position for the Israelis, will be 2 states, 2 homelands for 2 peoples. And the refugee problem should be resolved within that parameter. I believe that will be the opening statement or the opening position of the Israeli government.
Okay, come back to you.
Yes,
Karma.
I mean, you have an opening statement which is 2 states for 2 people, which is 242, land for peace. So when the Arab Initiative mentions 194, that's about the return of the refugees. So it doesn't mean by not saying right of return in the initiative that it doesn't address the right of return, which is the core of the conflict. I mean, the most important thing about a peace process is that you make it with the people involved. You don't make it simply between the leaderships, and the refugees are the majority of the people. So by saying you won't address their rights or begin with discussing what happened, which was the expulsion of the Palestinian people in 1948, you're going to again avoid tackling the issue that needs to be tackled in order to get a real solution.
That right of return, as Karma was saying there, is just hopelessly unacceptable to you, is it?
Well, First, I believe Karma is absolutely right in the fact that in order to achieve our goal, and we have to keep our eyes on the prize here, and the prize is end of conflict and establishment of a independent Palestinian state that will solve and help solve all of the problems that we're facing. I believe that Karma is right, that we have to start addressing, this is a people's issue. The refugee problem is at the heart of the Palestinian cause. Those people, and I have very little doubt that there's anybody denying the suffering of 60 years in refugee camps without proper living conditions, without proper rights. And I think that the emotions that are involved, dignity, pride, nationality, identity, are one of the most, or some of the most strongest emotions human beings have. And that is why this is so hard. And I believe you're right, that we need to start talking about those things. And that's why I'm very excited that this show is happening and discussing this. That's why I was excited this week. The US Congress subcommittee on the Middle East had a hearing about refugees led by Representative Gary Ackerman. It's a very good development. I think we need to make a distinction, though, between what are rights, what are narratives, and what is possible and practical solution.
Right. Well, we're delighted to be doing this too, and I mean, we've reached the end of our time, which is astonishing. But we will return to this subject because this is, well, I guess the thought of solving this problem in 8 minutes was pretty unlikely anyway.
But it's good to put it on the table, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll return. We will return to this one.
I like that. We will return.
Yes, we will return.
In both our narratives, we have that, right, Michael?
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's it. Before we go, let's just return briefly to Tony Blair's resignation announcement. What will he do next, everyone's asking? Well, perhaps we can help with the answer to that. When I interviewed Mr. Blair on Frost Over the World back in November, it was a question that I asked him. If the next Prime Minister was, say, Gordon Brown, and if he was to ask you if you would continue to serve as Foreign Secretary because you're so good at it, what would you say?
No, I think when you step down as Prime Minister, you step down, and it's part of modern politics is foreign affairs is no longer almost like foreign affairs. I mean, we are affected in Britain today by an extremism that didn't begin in this country, has come in from outside, and its solution is found outside. And so, in a strange way, what I've seen in my 10 years as Prime Minister is a situation in which you've moved from domestic affairs and foreign affairs being kind of in two different compartments to one in which really the domestic and the foreign intermingle.
Absolutely. What about, when you step down, what about Shireen? Would she be tempted to do a Hillary Clinton, do you think?
No.
Well, that's about it for this week. Do join me in 7 days' time, same spot on the dial for another Frost Over the World. Until then, goodbye for now.